Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode at the Global Digital Week. My name is Josh Halpern, and I'm supporting the Global Institute for Digital Competitiveness, talking about two basic concepts here. We're talking about cross-border e-commerce, how small and medium businesses basically can go global on day one or at any point in their journey, and how they should be doing it through multiple channels. So multicanalidad, I've got that in Spanish now. So omni-channel essentially strategy and cross-border. Before starting, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a kind of who I am. So let's start with that. Yeah, how do I show my? There we go. So there we go. So I run an initiative called the Grow Big Initiative. It's a public-private partnership that helps companies for free go international or ultimately optimize their e-commerce channels through partnerships with industry, government, and associations. Basically, my quick background, previously I was with Big Commerce working on omni-channel strategies for international. Before that, I'm a U.S. Foreign Commercial Service Officer with the U.S. Department of Commerce. I served in China for a number of years, helping U.S. companies enter the China market through e-commerce, through distributors, and through licensees. I ran the retail, e-commerce, luxury auto parts portfolios. A lot of what I was doing was helping companies figure out how do you sell into China through Alibaba's assets, let's say Tmall Global, Jingdong Worldwide, or Amazon.cn when Amazon had their CN site. Obviously, I worked a lot in that space, and then I was asked to come back under the Obama administration and launch the Silicon Valley E-commerce Innovation Lab for the U.S. Department of Commerce, to help companies in the U.S. understand how to sell globally, not just to Asia, through e-commerce. That's been particularly insightful for me because part of what I was doing was building a council of the kind of cutting edge fintech, logistics, digital agency kind of components and the data components to help companies in a scalable way go global. We ultimately got funding from Facebook, Google, eBay, Pitney Bowes, USPS, signed multiple agency partnerships, and I exited the Department of Commerce to help companies figure this out on a global scale. So not just U.S. outbound, but now we work with Europe, with governments there, with Canada, Latin America, and the U.S. and Middle East, as well as in China as well. And we help companies, specifically small and medium companies, go global through e-commerce. Okay, I also happen to travel around in a mobile video studio, a Sprinter van called the Vanbassador, VANBASSADOR, Vanbassador. You can check it out on vanbassador.com. And I interview small brands on how they're staying local but going global. And how they do that, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So starting firstly, you can always access our initiative platform. We aggregate a lot of different public-private partnership services and tools. We're working obviously with the Global Institute for Digital Competitiveness about possibly translating this into other languages. And essentially, we get on the phone with companies. We do an assessment. We walk through our platform. We look at where they're at with omnichannel, with cross-border, with payments, with domestic optimization for listings, with SEO, with fulfillment, and where they're placing their inventory around the world. And then we come up with a strategy using a number of free tools that our partners give us. And then we have an action plan that makes it actionable. We also try to leverage government grants in the local community and government financing so that companies have access to the resources they need, especially in the new post-COVID e-commerce paradigm, where it's harder to get financing if you don't have a single prepaid PO and all these purchase order and other things. So we're working on a lot of those pieces. We work with obviously a lot of different groups. I'm not going to bore you with this slide. Online platform, there it is. You go in, you create a free login and password. And I can tell you about this through Guillermo, and the team can share that link with you. But essentially at growbig.org, you can find this stuff. And we go through some general assessments, and then we look at real modules to drive your growth. Now, transitioning to cross-border. So I will help often companies that, whether it's a women's motorcycle apparel brand, whether it's Paris Hilton skincare or other, let's say, companies around the world. They want to understand first, why do I care about selling overseas? Because ultimately, they often will say, I have not saturated my local market yet. And my argument to them is, well, first of all, overall, consumers are starting to buy things more regularly off of other sites. And more importantly, as you see in that 50% of traffic on the largest retailers' websites coming from overseas, marketplaces and social commerce sites are seeing massive purchasing happening from consumers that are outside of that marketplace's domestic market. So we're seeing huge growth. But more importantly, we're seeing, okay, what are they buying? Not tremendously dissimilar around the world post-COVID. Everything from the groceries and the home exercise equipment to obviously PPE and other products. And they're buying a lot less of what they would need, like a suit or a briefcase, for obvious reasons. But why are they not buying? And that's a big question here. How can we help consumers buy more? On the right, you see a number of reasons, and I'll list them out for those listening at home without visual. Delivery tracking, easy returns and refund policies. These are the reasons. These are the things that they care about most, and that merchants are not meeting them with. Reasonable shipping times, multiple payment methods, transparency and displaying of all costs, user information privacy, authenticity, guaranteed and quality assurance programs, and multiple shipping methods. So essentially, a lot around shipping, a lot around fulfillment, a lot around authenticity, all things that you could solve even with a basic text site on your page under shipping policies to tell a merchant or to tell a consumer, you can actually deliver this product. It's going to get there in a little while. Yes, wait for it, but it's coming. If you got to get more optimized, you can give them some tracking information, etc. But ultimately, you can convey this and the authenticity, examples of your product being true and honest and created from a factory in your local country, pictures of it being made. Those are areas you can see to combat some of the, let's say, fake products that are coming into the market. On the left, obviously, these are a list of things you can do. But what I really love about the opportunities today is that there are plugins for this now that allow you to optimize your site to comply with the consumer trends. Now I want to transition to selling everywhere, okay? What I mean by that is it's not just about geography, but now it's also about channel. So officially, basically what we're saying is your platform, wherever your platform is, whether it's Shopify, BigCommerce, Wix, Magento, Salesforce, Tienda Nube, Vtex, you want to make sure that you have the ability to syndicate your listings, meaning list them on multiple marketplaces from your website. Now, I want to say website, that term's also evolving to a headless commerce option where your digital portal that, let's take the most simplest form of a Shopify or a BigCommerce or a Tienda Nube, that's, people refer to that as a website, but really today's world, it's starting to morph into, there's a consumer facing layer, but that hub has to be a hub for digital commerce, meaning you can now list your products pulling from your site with all your product listings and having it be the same on Amazon, on Wish, on Walmart, on Mercado Libre. You want to make sure that it's the same, not only in the way it's listed, which of course is going to take a light layer of localization, optimization, sure, because the data feeds probably break down every so often, but it's certainly a lot better than if you don't do it. But you also want to make sure that your inventory is synced, and we'll talk about that in a second. So I'm going to go through that real quick. Where are your consumers? So before we get into the how, we're going to talk a little bit again about finding your tribe. We talked about how your tribe is global. We talked about how you should be looking for your tribe everywhere. So it's more likely that you find somebody who cares about left-handed widgets in Prague than it is that somebody, perhaps somebody who's never even heard of a left-handed widget in your local company, in your local country. So you don't want to convince somebody that's never going to buy your product. Spending your marketing money to convince them is probably not as worthwhile as finding the exact person who gets it and wants it in another country, assuming you can optimize your channels. And this is what we're talking about today. Now, talk about channels. Essentially, what we're seeing now is marketplaces are coming online with wonderful local optimized websites. Obviously, the interface is all in the local language, the payments, the fulfillment. So all you have to do is list your products and translate those product listings. Makes it very easy to enter a new market. What we're seeing is social commerce is getting into the game. We're seeing TikTok, Instagram, you're seeing Google Shopping. All of these platforms are saying, hey, we want to start, we've got all this confidence with the consumer. we want to start selling to them, and we want to do it for you so you don't spend your time on the marketplaces. Of course, that's the battleground. So social commerce is playing a big role in convincing consumers to make purchases. 74% of people who are on social media say they look to social media to make a purchase before they make a purchase, to do that research. So now you're seeing marketplaces and social commerce, great kind of interlocutors for you as you expand globally. And they have the consumers. We're also seeing that consumers around the world that are already buying on one channel are 38% more or less likely to buy products if they see it on multiple channels. So putting your products out there is just like saying, hey, do you want another 5 physical stores in your neighborhood for free based on a percentage of sale? Well, this is the digital form of that. And that's a pretty great proposition. Now, again, what I talked about, if you're going to do that, though, you're selling everywhere, which you've established now is a good strategy, I would say. And it's manageable, even for a PyME, even for a small and medium business. How do you syndicate it effectively? So if you look at the blue area, forget about, this is BigCommerce's portal, and this is their kind of scenario. They're open SaaS, so people build plugins. Shopify has something similar, but instead of all these different third-party integrations that you see in kind of blue, they try to do their own integration, and they charge for it. Again, it's nice and easy. So if that's an option for you, great. If you have more complexity, or you want to kind of save some money, or you want to have maybe more diversity, because the open SaaS allows people to build integrations, that's another option for you. Again, the upper right is a bunch of different marketplaces where you can sell on. The white in the middle, where it says BigCommerce, let's call that also Shopify or VTEX, etc. That's where you would have your, what we call a website, but it's now your hub, where you don't not only just have your website, but now you're syndicating your products through what you say here. It says big C partners. So this might be a ZCommerce, a Codisto, a Feedonomics, where they take your product listings and they push them out across these different channels. But they also receive the data about who's buying what, so you can manage inventory effectively. Otherwise, you're talking about 5 orders from Instagram, 100 from Amazon, 1,000 from your site. What if you start to fill those and you don't know if your inventory is synced in the back end? It's a nightmare, but that's why these platforms and these integrations exist. Similarly with checkout counters and other solutions that are out there, right? So I just boiled down with the help of BigCommerce, but we boiled down 4 pillars of omni-channel success. So you've got channels where you're selling your products, where consumers buying their products from. Marketing, how are you managing and pushing out your marketing at the best ROI for your kind of future? Operations, how are you dealing with that syndication and inventory management? What tools are you using, if it's an ERP, if it's not? And your fulfillment, how are you dealing with getting your products to the consumers? It's really important to figure those out, because the more flexible you are and the more diverse channels you're on, the more you can mitigate the risks when it comes to a trade war, let's say, or a pandemic. What are most of our sellers, or what are most sellers looking for? They want to be visible everywhere. They want to create an experience that's consistent across all the different platforms. They want to be able to manage their catalogs and their prices. This is all I'm talking about. This is all about that syndication and those integrations, right? And then they want to also comply with the expectations, or meet expectations of the consumers, which is also offering, let's say, fulfillment transparency, using plugins that allow a consumer to quickly check where their package is. So there are 4 basic channels for where you're going to be selling. You're going to be selling off your website, marketplaces, social commerce, and your physical site. I talked about most of this in certain ways, so I'm going to skip through, but understanding that there are essentially 4 ways you should be using. Oh, on the right there are a bunch of different ways you can syndicate your products, as I was talking about on the lower right. So if you're selling off your own site and you want to sell cross-border, and that would be for 2 major, let's say, reasons, right? One, you want to sell directly to your consumer. You want your consumer to come to your website. Makes sense. You're going to be optimizing your site in this way. I'll talk about this in a second. The second is you may be selling, or want to sell or captivate your audience on Instagram, but then you want to resend them over to your optimized checkout. And I'll talk about that in a second too. Ultimately, whatever the case is, this is what you want to do to your checkout counter on your site. You want to make sure you have local currency, local payment wallet options. You want to make sure that the language is proper, even in the checkout, even if you're not optimizing the rest of your site. When they get to a checkout, there are plugins, whether it's Zonos, I think Bold, Shopify has one integrated already. There's a bunch of different solutions out there, but essentially what they'll do is based on the IP address of the consumer, they will change the site into the local currency. They'll change the language in the checkout. They'll also often integrate duties and tax calculators so that you know how much a consumer needs to pay. And a consumer, if you want, can pay for that upfront at the point of sale. And all of that's taken care of for you. So again, as a small and medium business, there's no way you're doing this on your own, but it's beautiful because there are integrations out there. So again, that's through a plugin service. Usually they're a percentage of sale. They might be a monthly fee, but they're worth taking a look at. The second channel you'll be going on is marketplaces, right? Marketplaces is a great channel. As you can see, there are a lot of marketplaces there that you and I have never heard of before. All that to say, if you think your marketplace play is Amazon or Walmart, think again. Figure out what marketplaces are selling your random products, whether it's a halal prepackaged foods out of Malaysia or it's auto parts out of Europe. You should find that marketplace that fits and that's right for you, and then see how you can work with them. There's a couple of ways. Maybe we should kind of talk about this for a second. A couple of ways you would work with marketplaces. One is the 1P option or first party. That's the idea of you're selling directly to a marketplace, and the marketplace is the buyer. And let's call the retailer the distributor of that. So Amazon buying your products, for example. The second way you might be selling is a third party, as you know, where you're listing your own products on marketplaces. But not all marketplaces allow that. And ones that do might also have gates up for not everybody can list. That is the case more and more with Amazon and Walmart as they're starting to see such an influx of sellers that are, let's say, lower quality or even counterfeit goods. They're putting up barriers to do a vetting process beforehand. But that is the way that most people sell, is as a third party. Okay, now in terms of agencies, and we're getting a little far afield here, but in terms of agencies, working with agencies on marketplaces so that they can take care of it for you. That when I say take care of it, they can deal with your creating the most optimal store, dealing with your price strategy, getting the gray market products off the store for you through battling it out with other sellers, also kind of optimizing your ad spend. All of those things that an agency, let's say a marketplace agency, whether it's on Mercado Libre agency like Solucionet or Amazon or Solucionet in Latin America, whether you're talking about eTrax for Rakuten in Japan, or you're talking about any number of companies in China and elsewhere for Tmall or the Amazon players, essentially they're going to either charge you a percentage of sales. So whatever you sell on the marketplace, they're taking a percentage of it. They're charging you a retainer on a regular basis. So they're just saying, give me $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, and I'll manage your site. That's rare because usually they want to have incentives aligned. So they do a hybrid where they take a percentage of sale and a retainer. And then the kind of fourth, let's argue, would be number 4, would be they actually are the wholesale. They buy the product for you, and then they just build your site. They do your sales. Now, obviously, they're taking a lot more margin often. And they're also probably, more discerning because they're going to put their money where their mouth is, and they're going to purchase the product. And then they're the ones who are at risk of not selling it. That's basically how you'd be working with a marketplace. So social commerce, not dissimilar in terms of how you'd work with them. But this is the case where a lot of people are on social, and that's where your confidence is with a consumer. Because think about it as the person where people are spending most of their time, and with their friends, they're talking about products. They feel like there's confidence in that environment. Well, now social commerce is saying, let me get a piece of that. And they're allowing you to sell right into that audience. So it's a great way to start. Instagram is obviously one with billion+ sellers. But talk about Instagram. It's particularly interesting when we talk about the new shoppable assets on Instagram, where you can have somebody purchase a product on Instagram, go directly to a checkout, and make the purchase. That's great. You can do it with Instagram and Facebook. But for a lot of countries or a lot of merchants in different countries, they don't have the ability because of regulate or like kind of the rollout for Instagram of listing if they're not a US based company. But if they have an Instagram store or they have an Instagram, let's say social, let's say presence, they can actually drive people to your own checkout. Remember that I talked about that earlier. How do you optimize your checkout for cross-border? Because it's not just about, well, I don't get anybody to my website, so why would I optimize my site? If you have any social presence at all, your call to action of driving people to a particular product on your website means that now you can sell to them because you've got your site set up. And so that's a great hybrid way of optimizing or of taking advantage of social media traffic you may already have. And again, that's kind of the quick slide on that. That's Instagram and how do you sell on Instagram and what do you need? But the cross-border piece of that is a little bit more complex because you can do offsite checkout. We're seeing a lot of merchants opt, even in the U.S., opt to not be on Instagram when it talks to checkout. They say, well, when a consumer comes to my Instagram, I'm going to send them to my own site, even though I could keep them on there because they don't want to give over their data to Instagram. They want to keep it for themselves. And obviously that walled garden that Instagram creates means they know more about your consumer than you do. So you may not even want to take advantage of the on-site or in social media checkout, in native checkout. So basically the takeaways here before we do one little piece of homework for you is borderless commerce is the new norm. Sell everywhere. Sell everywhere in terms of channels. Consumers are buying from all different channels. And if they see your product on multiple channels, they're more likely to purchase. There's integrations and solutions that make it very easy for small and medium businesses to start selling everywhere on multiple channels. And if you're not ready for global, do multiple channels and then do global. But I would argue that depending on the opportunity and your particular product line, you may be able to do both at the same time. And then fulfillment can be the big differentiator. A lot of consumers really are hyper concerned about whether the product is going to arrive or when it's going to arrive. And if you can settle their nerves early on and build that confidence, you're going to have a great lifetime value for your company, for your consumers. Now, here's a quick note on me. Oh, okay. Here's a quick note on me. If you want to get in touch with me, obviously do it through LinkedIn. You can also go to growbig.org. So growbig.org, and there's a social handle is growbig.org. But you can contact us. You can check out some of the free solutions, free videos, and free links. And follow me at the Van Ambassador if you want to see my posts on interviewing brands on some of the key kind of secret sauce of how they're staying local and going global. Quick homework assignment. I don't have the slide up here. I might be able to switch it. Nah, not even gonna mess with it. Take an evaluation of your value proposition in your domestic market. So take a nice little Excel sheet on the left. Put all the different value propositions you have in your domestic market. So let's say you're based in Mexico. How fast can you deliver in Mexico? Is that one of the reasons people buy from you because you happen to have fast delivery? What about your SKU set? Do you have a wide range of product line? Is that one of the main things that people like about you? Uniqueness. Do you have really unique products that no one else has access to? Is that one of your value propositions? Pricing. Is it just cheaper than it is elsewhere? Once you start to look at that, I want you to then take the next column and put in a country that you care, another country, and another country where you either get the most traction currently social media wise, even if you're not selling into those countries, or where you think you might have more like-minded consumers. Once you do that in that column, I want you to evaluate, are you able to deliver those same value propositions in that core market, target market, or not? Start to evaluate that, get a feel for that ability, because we see a lot of companies, some of the largest retailers in the world that I've been working with, that are known in the US for delivery, fast fashion, and they're not necessarily known overseas for doing that because they just can't compete on delivery times or cost of delivery. So they start to do their marketing based on the selection, and they've adjusted their marketing strategies to do that. If you happen to be really good I loved using the analogy of a company I worked with that was a rock climbing company, and they made one thing. They made glasses that had a mirror was it right here? Yeah, I think it was a mirror like right here. And it was for rock climbers. And so if you don't have to strain your neck when you're rock climbing, so you kind of just look out this way. Well, that's a pretty darn niche product, but I guarantee they'll have a better success and spend a lot more in marketing if they market that product to an intense rock climber in Arizona, as well as their audience, let's say in Mexico, than they will trying to sell that product to somebody who spends most of their days in the spa in Mexico and has never seen a rock in their life. So again, find that tribe. There's probably a value proposition for them and sell to them and optimize for cross-border. And with that, I'm Josh Halpern, and thank you so much to the Global Institute for Digital Competitiveness, and have a great day.